Hey, man, Steve, what's going on, fam?
Oh, nothing's going on. I got to tell you, Coach, the sun is shining. The breeze is nice and cool. The birds are chirping just a little bit loudly. Life is good, Coach. Life is good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Listen, Steve, I have you on the show. We got to give this man an introduction. Better known as a career co-sale. This man really needs no introduction. The infamous Steve Kim.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Always great to join you, Coach.
Man, Steve, hey Steve, listen here, man. You one of the favorite guys that everybody loves to hate, and
Uh,
so I had to bring you on.
I mean, Coach. First, you let off with Tim Bradley.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's gonna anger people.
No.
Then,
I had Rick Glazer on first.
all right, then you had Glazer to lead off,
Yeah.
followed by the Desert Storm, and now you got me. I
Yeah.
don't know what you're gonna do tomorrow to top
Oh,
this.
oh,
I
oh,
mean, but
oh,
you,
oh, oh, tomorrow Bomac. Tomorrow Bomac.
oh my God! Well, you know what? It is an honor. It is an honor to be the undercard to the great Bomac because, as Bomac said so eloquently last week, you can't hide, Derek. You can't hide, Derek. It's over. You
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he said
Coach,
that.
what's going on?
All right. Hey, Steve, I have some magnificent questions for you.
Yes, yes, yes.
Listen, Terence Crawford proved everyone wrong. A lot of people didn't believe in him or whatever the case may be, and he did address that. He proved everyone wrong last week, Saturday, just passed. Were you surprised at how one-sided? I know you picked. You told me from day one you got Crawford stopping Spence around 9, 8, 9, somewhere up in there, 10, somewhere up in there. I think you said 8th or 9th round.
I
But
said 10th, actually, yes,
you
last
said
week
10.
on the show. Yeah.
Were you surprised at how one-sided it was?
I think everyone was, Coach.
Yeah.
The dominant opinion was the fight was going to be close early. Both men will have moments. Terence will have his typical slow start, but then he'll figure out Errol Spence, and then he'll start to use his versatility to kind of separate himself. And then he'd have to be really careful given the fact he was not the A side, he was not the house fighter. But, Coach, I don't know about you, but once that right hand, the cleanup jab off the 2-1 landed on Spence in round 2, there was an audible gasp. I was at the fight party of Coach JB. There was like 20, 25 people. And I'm just telling you, the mood changed like we know which direction this is going. And, when I rewatched the fight, Coach, I thought originally it was a flash knockdown. It really wasn't, because if you see how that round ends, Spence is actually really buzzed up along the ropes. And then when he won rounds 3 and 4, you really felt like, geez, if this is a slow start, Errol Spence has no shot to win this. And so round by round, you could just see Terence Crawford picking up steam. So, look, I've always felt that there was a reason why Al Heyman and the PBC delayed this fight. They thought they could actually age out Terence Crawford, but ironically, they actually outgrew the division with their own fighter. That's the problem with marinating. Sometimes you get burned. But, yeah, I'll admit, I never envisioned where one guy would score 4 knockdowns or 3 knockdowns and dominate from basically the 3rd minute on of the fight.
That's very telltale, because it kind of seems to me, and I think it seems to you as well, that Terence Crawford was very prepared for what Spence was going to do. Partially because Spence is pretty much a one-dimensional fighter. He fights pretty much the same way. I've always said this, but he's been able to get away with it. Were you surprised that Derek James did not come up with a different game plan for Terence Crawford?
That's an interesting thing, because I don't think Derek James would have. Look, if you would have switched trainers based on who was on the stool, I'm not so sure that the result would have changed. And I defended Derek James in a lengthy tweet yesterday saying, hey, look, he's the same guy that was the trainer of the year that everyone was praising just 5-6 days ago, right? So you got to keep that in perspective. Fighters win fights. They make the trainer. A lot of great trainers have lost big fights, but the more I think about it, if Derek James was not that respectful of Terence Crawford and Bomac and his staff, and look, Derek has an ego, and he likes to talk a lot, and he was kind of dismissive of the overall skill set and the talent of Bud. And if he did not adjust at all during training camp, but sometimes it's really about the training camp and the preparation and the film study. By the time you get to the fight, sometimes a trainer is powerless to make any difference. That's just the truth. If that is the case, and if he did not really have the proper amount of respect for what Terence Crawford can do, then a lot of that is on him, or at least some of it. But Derek James, look, here's the thing. I want to point this out. Errol Spence had the blessing to be with a promotional company that had all of the well-known welterweights, the guys that had the belt. But with that said, there's a reason why they never wanted to fight Terence Crawford first or really ever. And Spence is very good at what he does, but as you pointed out, Coach, he's overly methodical. And if you are just a one-speed guy that cannot change tempo or pace, you have no shot against Bud Crawford. None.
So, Steve, it's something that, I want to share something with you right quick. Right now, to my right, I have a picture. It's a picture of the ninth round when Terence Crawford hurt Errol Spence real bad, and he lost balance, and he got the Bambi legs. And there's a picture of him looking at Terence Crawford with blood in his face, and it looks like he was in terrible pain, and he was about to cry. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if you can see it, but the pictures are everywhere. The pictures are everywhere. But it's this one point right here. It's this one point right here. And when I saw that, I said, I've never seen Spence look like that. I think it was at that moment, and then Crawford is running towards him now. Crawford, he looks pretty big in this picture right here, him and Spence. But Crawford is running towards him, and he's on Bambi legs. He has his left leg in the air and his right leg on the ground, and he's looking at Crawford, blood all over his face, and his eyes are saying, man, please, man, somebody help me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's, at that point, I was just so surprised at, like, damn. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, Coach, let me point out round 7 after the second knockdown of that round. The bell rings, and it was an interesting moment. Terence Crawford actually kind of takes a couple of steps in between Harvey Dock, the referee, and Errol, and he kind of pats him on the hip to say, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
I thought that was a really, really interesting moment. And in my view, my biggest criticism of Derek, he let his ego, and he made this personal against Bomac throughout the whole camp and leading into the fight and at the final press conference. In my view, his ego got involved, and it's just my opinion, I would have stopped the fight after the 7th. Because there was no way he was going to win the fight. But again, when a trainer starts to make it about them, it can really negatively impact his fighter. That's why I don't like trainers gambling at all, even on their own guy, because you start making irrational decisions. And Coach, here's the other thing. Even though Errol Spence has scored a lot of knockouts, he's certainly not a feather-fisted. He's not a one-punch knockout guy. He doesn't have that concussive power that could turn around a fight. So at that point, if you're already down 3 knockdowns and you lost every other round outside the first, mathematically it was impossible, in my view, and in reality, because the scorecards were 79-70. So I didn't understand the point of even letting Errol take that beating at the end.
Do you think it was his ego? Because that's following into my next question. Right before the stoppage, as I said before, I did see Errol Spence's bloody face. Do you feel that the referee did the right thing? And the reason why I'm saying, but I'm gonna tell you why. I'm going somewhere with this. The reason why I'm saying is we saw something very similar to this about 3 years ago when Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder fought each other, and in that second fight, Tyson Fury was steamrolling Deontay Wilder, beating him from pillar to post, dropped him 2 times. He was laying it on him real good. And when I think when Mark Breland waved the towel in, Deontay Wilder was pinned in the corner, and Tyson Fury was teeing off with him with right hands. And when he threw the towel in and stopped the fight, he got attacked by not only Deontay Wilder, the guy's life, his fighter he saved, but he got attacked by Deontay Wilder's supporters. So do you think that might have played, of course, I'm dead serious when I ask you this question, Steve. Do you think that might have played in and why Derrick James didn't throw the towel in, or you just think no, it was just simply his ego and his arrogance?
I don't know if Derrick James had that thought process.
Yeah.
I mean, Errol's face was bruised and lumped up early. It was bloodied. I don't know if that really played a part. And Derrick and Errol have a very good relationship. I think they're a little bit closer personally than even Mark Breland and Deontay were or are, based on what I know. And Errol's a very amiable guy. I just, here's the difference. Deontay can be he's a little bit interesting. I've always thought Errol was a very amiable, nice young man, very well mannered. I've always had really good interactions with him. I don't get the sense that he has the personality of Deontay Wilder. And that is not a knock on Deontay. They're just different type of guys. But your number one job, coach, as a fighter, along with making sure your guy is completely prepared, both physically, strategically, and mentally, you have to protect your fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Above and beyond winning, your job is to make sure that when that fight ends, whether it's round 1 or round 12, to the best of my ability, I made sure my guy didn't take more punishment than what is reasonable and expected. And I do think that his personal beef or battle with Bomac, who was I like Bomac. He's a colorful character. But he got under Derrick's skin from the very beginning of this. Mm-hmm. And no one wanted to give Bomac his credit. Bomac is an easy guy to make fun of because his weight. Mm-hmm. But you know what? That team over there does a hell of a job getting Terence Crawford ready to battle.
Yeah.
Okay? And I just think there came a point where Derrick had to put aside his ego and say, you know what? We're going to live to fight another day. And I've gotten the sense, Coach, I don't know if you agree with me, Errol Spence lost something in that fight that's irretrievable.
You know what? I do agree with you because I think he was more shocked than anything. He looked like he was ill prepared. And he was very, very shocked. He had a look of disbelief on his face, because maybe he was believing a lot of his own press clippings. Maybe he was believing a lot of his own supporters online and in the streets and the PBC propaganda machine. I think maybe he was believing that. So it was like a culture shock to him. Like, damn, I can't believe this guy's doing this to me.
Yeah.
Coach. Go ahead, Steve.
Coach, did you notice, and I mentioned this on the 3 knockdown rule, and I wrote about it last week, when they were in Vegas, when I'm watching some of the videos, Bud Crawford looked like a predator. He looked ready to pounce, he was in his game face. There was this icy intensity that he had. I mean, he was calling him a bitch end and letting him know, don't let this get sticky. And then Errol just looked very listless and detached, like, oh God, I actually have to do this. And now I'm not one of those guys who believes the stare downs or the body language always tells you what happens in a fight. But Coach, it was hard to really not notice the difference in demeanor between the two men last week.
Yeah, Terence Crawford, believe it or not, if you meet him, and Steve, you know him, you met him and stuff like that. But when I went to Omaha, if you meet him and when he talks to you, he looks you directly in your eyes. He give off a certain energy that can be intimidating.
There's no doubt.
I'm dead serious. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but I know this for a fact. A lot of guys who have these YouTube channels who say all of this crazy stuff about Crawford, I promise you, if they saw him and just was in his face and he's looking at him, the energy that he gives off, he don't give off no soft shit. You got to be a real man, and you got to understand. Wait a minute, man. This dude here, he's Coach, not that guy. He's not that
Coach,
guy.
His nickname should be the coldest. DA coldest, because I mean, after one of those knockdowns, the fight's not even waved off, where he goes over and he starts taunting Jermell Charlo.
Yeah. I'm whipping your boy ass, and I'm talking shit to you at the same time. You next. And so in the post-fight interview, Crawford said that, and I want you to hear this because I played it in the beginning of the show. He said they tried to blackball me for years, but I kept praying for the opportunities in order to get the big fights. What do you think about what Crawford meant when he said they, keyword on they, tried to blackball him for years?
Well, look, let's go to the beginning. Some will say it was Top Rank. I disagree with much of that, although Bob Arum did not help his relationship when he made some comments that, hey, I'm losing money on this guy. Whether that's true or not, generally that's not going to do a lot of good things for your professional or business relationship with anybody. But he meant the PBC. They basically tried to act like he did not exist. Yeah. Do you remember those Fox broadcasts where they have those banners with the graphics of all the welterweight champions or no? Yeah. It was almost like Bud Crawford didn't exist. It's almost like he was an enemy of Stalin, erased from the record book, scrubbed clean from history, right? And then other times, certain shows would say, well, he's on the wrong side of the street, even though Wilder and Fury, they met in the middle of the street. But the difference was that Deontay Wilder did not have the heavyweight option, so he had to do a fight with Tyson Fury to make that type of money. They tried to basically weigh him out, rub him out, scrub him out. And the other thing that was really interesting, there was this perception, and I know this for a fact, and I don't know if people were just doing this on purpose, but this whole notion that Terence Crawford doesn't make that much money. Well, and I heard people say he's only making $1 million or so. Coach, under his last Top Rank deal, which began in 2018, his minimum, and that minimum was $3.5 million per fight. He actually got paid more than his minimum during most of that contract, and it culminated with a $6 million payday against Sean Porter. Right. So when people said that Terence has no leverage, well, look, Spence had better opponents. He did better pay-per-view numbers. But Terence Crawford actually does sell tickets. I've been at his fights in Las Vegas. Yeah. He does very well in Omaha. Yeah. Omaha travels well. In fact, my friend told me he thought there were more fans in Omaha from Omaha this week in Dallas. Right? Yeah. So I don't – they tried to downplay Terence to a point where it didn't matter if he never fought him or that he didn't deserve it. And look, at the end of the day, they played this game of waiting it out. And then there's another thing. When he fought Evanescence on BLK Prime, they try to downplay that. Well, wait a minute. If he's not going to fight Errol Spence last fall or winter, why shouldn't this guy pick up a few $1 million and stay busy? Well, I didn't understand why that move was criticized. But if the check didn't bounce, then guess what? Terence Crawford gave himself a competitive advantage going into this fight. Meanwhile, Errol Spence has not fought since April of 2022. You play dumb games, you win stupid prizes.
Well, you know, he doesn't take 2-0 fights. He stayed out of the ring for a while before and beat Danny Garcia and beat Ugas. So that's what they were saying prior to the fight.
Well, coach, this wasn't Danny Garcia or your Dennis Ugas. Okay.
Crawford doesn't seem to be liked a lot by the more popular fighters, you know, in boxing, especially like at the PBC. You know, so my thing is this. What I wanted to ask you was this. Is it because he's not a part of the cool kids or the in crowd? You know what I mean?
Oh, no, look.
He doesn't party, doesn't drink, he doesn't hang out with rappers, smoke, any of that stuff. He is respected amongst people in boxing, but he doesn't get it litty and popping like the Charlos, or he's a cool dance and hang out like with Tank and all those other guys and Errol Spence. You know, like he doesn't do any of that. Is that the reason why he's kind of like the oddball? He's not the hip guy amongst the PBC supporters?
Terence Crawford is a very, very understated, I want to say shy, but there's not a phony bone in his body. Like, I don't particularly have a great relationship with him. I certainly respect him as a fighter. I think he's the best in the world, and I understand how difficult he is to face in there. But that's a hard man. That is a serious person, as Logan Roy would say. He is not to be played with. And I respect that, though, because there's no silliness, there's no frivolity to him. And you're right, but I also think it's very parochial. Look, Coach, and I could point this out. Anytime there's a big fight between different promoters, this is why when people say, you got to ask the fighters who they think is going to win, I actually disagree because they're so biased.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the PBC guys will always say the PBC guy's going to win. And I understand that because politically you don't want to upset people. You don't want to ruffle feathers. and you want to be able to thank Al with the with your next date, right? Right? Let's be honest. Let's be honest about that. Yeah, we want to be able to continue to thank Al for letting me eat here, my one fight a year. So a lot of these guys are biased, and they can't give a fair opinion.
Right.
They really can't. And this thing is so political, and that's why guys like you, Coach, are very important in a sense that you're going to give your opinion because you're independent. You're not bought by anybody. You're not beholden to anybody. Your opinion is your opinion. And that's why we need guys like you, BDA, Julia from Ring IQ. We're not going to always agree, but I respect the fact, Coach, you're giving your opinion, not some opinion that you're forced to give or the political pressure and all that other stuff. So a lot of these guys, when they say, hey, who's going to win this fight? It doesn't matter if it's a PBC fighter against Muhammad Ali and Ray Robinson. They will say the PBC fighter is going to win. And I get it. I don't hold it against them. We all have bosses. We all have restrictions on, I guess, on what we can say. I mean, there was this one scene. I don't know if you saw it, but, Coach, someone caught up to Adrien Broner after the fight. Man, and they tried to ask him about the fight.
He looked sick.
Adrien looked like he saw a ghost.
Yeah, he looked sick. Yeah, Adrien Broner looked. Adrien, you know what? Listen. I'm not. I can't read minds or anything. But I have a friend of mine. He was a serial gambler. And every time he lost his money, like he used to gamble his rent money, he was very, very addicted. And when he come back home, it's this look like his soul got snatched out of his body. And it was like, man, I can't describe it, but the look that Adrien Broner had on his face, my friend, his name is Bobby. That's what Adrien Broner looked like.
Yeah.
Like somebody snatched his soul out of his body, like he lost. He probably betted a whole bunch of money that he probably didn't have or whatever, but he was devastated.
I mean, he looked like a ghost. He looked kind of pale.
Yeah.
And there was none of this. He got cooked. He wasn't saying that, even though Spence got cooked. But anyway, that's the whole thing. I mean, so a lot of these guys are under pressure to say certain things. And guess what, Coach? So are certain media members and YouTubers and content creators.
Yeah.
It's all about access. It's all about staying on the good side of this fighter or that fighter. And me, I just say, hey, look, I'm not going to always say things that you like. And look, it's not like I am close with Terence Crawford. I'm not. You're not. But I do understand that guy is very tough. It is very, very tough to beat him. And I actually think he's gotten to be a better puncher because of improved technique where he turns over his punches on his knuckles even better than he did before. And look, I like Errol a lot, but some of the reasons that I pointed out were that I think there's been an erosion physically with Errol Spence. He's been through a lot, but that is not to take any credit away because when you predict a fight and you start to analyze it, Coach, you have to go through everything. You have to go through every single variable and say who's going to win this fight and why. Right. Now, Coach, I got to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Do you think there should be an immediate rematch?
You know what, Steve? I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I'm gonna give you a two-part answer. From the beating that I saw that Spence took at the hands of Errol Spence, he shouldn't immediately rematch him. That's one side of me saying this, but the other side is saying because all of the banter that I'm hearing online, they're still trying to discredit Bud. They're still trying to say something was wrong with Spence. It was a conspiracy. Tyson Fury gave Terence Crawford his egg weights that he used to knock Deontay Wilder out in the second fight. The water bottle was spiked. So I'm saying, you know what? Since these guys are still making all these excuses, let's put it to rest like Tyson Fury did Wilder. Go ahead and rematch him. And if you destroy him again, beat him again, then that'll silence everything. So I'm kind of split between the two.
Coach, I know Stephen A. Smith is taking a lot of heat because he flat out says Errol should retire. And I think he takes a lot of heat for it. And I'm like, it's actually not the worst idea. The guy's made millions. He's been through a lot. And don't we want fighters to leave this game rich and healthy?
Yeah.
I don't understand that. And look, and I think Stephen A. is a little bit, maybe that's too strong of an opinion, but it's not the worst idea I've ever heard. I'm actually going to write about it for my next column at Smack.com. And I've actually heard, this is what gets me, and I've tweeted, like, I don't really want to see the rematch. I certainly don't want to see it next in like 5-6 months. And then people come out and they think you're the nuttiest guy, that he's earned this, he needs this. And I'm thinking to myself, you guys really don't care about Errol Spence as a person. For all that you say, you're a bunch of phonies.
No, they don't care about Errol at all. These guys are pushing a race hustle agenda. That's what they're doing. But I'm going to get into that. What role did Paramount Global, in your opinion, play in the backing of the Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford fight financially?
I've heard the theories, and I've heard Mr. Glazer, a good friend of mine and ours, kind of alluded to it. Look, I believe this, that if Errol Spence did not have a real dance partner, there would have been a real backlash. And that next fight, if it did not, or this fight did not include Terence Crawford on the marquee, it would have been another pay-per-view bomb. And to the credit of Errol Spence, he did step up and say, okay, we'll fight. I mean, you can argue that it was too late. He tried to delay it, that he did it with a gun to his head. You know what? I'm not that cynical about it. I will give him credit for making the fight.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think there should be a second fight immediately, though. I think that's a different story. But I don't know. But look, here's the thing that's more alarming if you're Paramount and Showtime. Where are there other fights? I had completely forgotten that Lara was supposed to fight Danny Garcia. And then Danny Garcia puts out a tweet saying, hey, guys, I'm not actually fighting on August 5th. I had forgotten, Danny. Thanks for reminding me. Now I don't have to set my DVR.
Like anybody cared. Danny, what's nobody checking for you, Danny? What's nobody checking for you?
Right, right. A tree fell and no one was listening, so it didn't make a sound, right? So I was kind of tripping out about that whole thing. And so, look, if you're Al Heyman, you better have a dance partner because you're trying to make money. Because the opponent does matter. Look, Tank Davis, who I actually am higher on than most people. Here's the funniest thing. Without Ryan Garcia, his pay-per-view numbers have been pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
So the B side matters. This is not like a concert where you could just throw on Mariah Carey or Janet Jackson as a solo act and you're going to do numbers. This is a sporting event. It's a contest. So both parties do matter. Here's the question, though. If you are PBC and you kind of know, like, I don't care if they fight at 47 or 54, it's always going to be the same result. And if we have to put up these high guarantees again, and our guy lost, because let's face it, I don't care what anyone says, their guy was Errol Spence. Okay?
Yeah,
I don't want to hear these people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Are you sure, even from a business perspective, that they want to do this fight?
Yeah, because we know that they don't like Crawford at all. I mean, the PBC, they ain't never really fucked with him. So it's like, damn, what we feared 5 years ago finally came to pass, and then now this guy want to get back in there with him again. Shit, you know what I mean? So Crawford seemed to get his way. Steve, he seemed to pretty much get his way at the negotiations table prior to this fight in order to make this fight happen. Do you think that Crawford did the right thing by sticking to his guns? People did say that he did bad business. The people who don't like him, you know what I mean? Like, the people don't like him say he do bad business. Like, how the fuck you know? That man got a net worth of 8 figures. He got a boatload of money. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But do you think he did the right thing for sticking to his guns?
Yes. And I think there's a reality here, though. Mm-hmm. They were never going to make that fight with Bob Arum involved. And it is not a knock on Bob. Mm. They were willing to do that fight as long as PBC could be in full control. And as long as the winner of that fight, if it was Bud Crawford, couldn't just walk away. At least now Al Heyman could say, okay, I can make other fights with Bud Crawford, and maybe by the end of this run, one of these days, maybe, Coach, maybe Crawford may actually thank Al Heyman. He didn't do it on Saturday night, though.
No, he didn't thank Al. Crawford didn't say, well, first of all, I got to be like everybody else and thank Al Heyman.
Heyman.
Hey, he didn't even say Al Heyman that name at all. He didn't.
No. What's interesting about Crawford, he truly is he's a renegade. He is who he is. He is not part of the get along to go along or go along to get along gang.
Yeah,
he does not do that. He's a different type of guy. There's an authenticity to his personality that even if you don't have great relations, you're not particularly friendly, you do have to respect it. He is what he is. And he's a magnificent fighter. When old-time sports writers like Doug Krikorian, who covered the Four Kings, and you were at that restaurant at Phil Trainees, and we meet there every month, and he said, Steve, he told me this last year, that's the best fighter since Ray Leonard. And I said, what? I go, better than Roy Jones, Floyd, Oscar, Manny? And he goes, yeah. And then he calls me on Sunday. He goes, Steve, I'm telling you, I was at all those fights with Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, Duran. I was at ringside. He goes, this guy could have competed with them. That's high praise. I'll take his word for it. He was there. I wasn't.
Yeah, that is high praise. That's real high praise. Derrick James and Errol Spence seem to be very dismissive of Crawford, for his accomplishments in the lead up to the fight and even during the press conference. Do you think that their arrogance became their own on undoing Saturday?
I think it was a part of it. If Derrick James was really serious that I don't see anything special in Crawford, I'm not even watching tape, and it wasn't just him doing some gamesmanship or having some fun, shame on him. Shame on him. And you had one of the things I think everyone knew. You didn't have to be Angelo Dundee, coach, to figure out. You knew one of the ways that he was going to stifle and neutralize Errol Spence's southpaw stance was fighting southpaw himself. And that's the one fight he didn't have to switch it. He was a southpaw for that fight.
Yeah.
And the thing that was interesting to me is Terence Crawford is now on an 11-fight knockout streak at 47. He is now a puncher.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's Tommy Hearns, but he hurts people.
Yeah.
He really
he got 31 knockouts. He got 31 knockouts. So that ain't
31 knockouts, right. And so he can be a scalpel. He can be a machete. And that jab of his on Saturday night, coach, was a jackhammer.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. Shout out to Shaq for dropping a half a dub. He say salute Kim. He said it's all about the you. But back to the topic.
Hey.
Would you? Yeah, I like UM too. That's my favorite college football team. He said, would you say that Bud's resume better prepared him for Errol because he had the ability to learn different ways to win because he was at
Oh, okay. That's a great question, Shad. Yes, all about the you. Here's the thing, coach. If you and Michael Montero, good friend of mine, and Cali X Boxing have both made this point. If you take away who had the belt, look at the list of welterweights that both guys fought. There's really not that much of a difference. By the way, I think Igor Kavaliauskas, the guy that I saw fight Crawford and actually buzzed him in the fourth round of their fight, I think that could have been a knockdown.
Yeah, he got knocked down. He won't admit it, but he got knocked down.
He could probably beat all of the welterweights that Spence has fought the last 3-4 years. And Danny Garcia is a really good fighter, but he's a really good 140-pounder.
Yeah, that's
so.
It. Yeah. He ain't did shit in the welterweight division.
Right, and Ugas is a guy that rebuilt his career, but keep this in mind. And I like Ordenis. He's a great American success story. He got released by Top Rank coach as an 8-round fighter. Okay, so this whole notion. This is another lesson for us, though, coach. Resumes don't win fights. Because not everybody has the opportunity to fight the same guy. There's a reason why Crawford's been avoided.
Man, listen.
It wasn't the resume.
Steve, I've been saying this shit all the time on this show. Like, you hear these guys, well, he ain't fought nobody. And that's the same thing Errol Spence said. Man, you ain't fought nobody, man. Who you fought? Man, you ain't fought nobody, man. Derek, tell him, Derek. You ain't fought nobody, man. I've been trying to tell everybody you ain't fought nobody. So they been sitting back talking about Spence ain't fought nobody. Crawford ain't fought nobody. And I say this on the show all the time. I say, bro, resume don't win fights. When have you ever seen a person win or lose a fight based on his resume?
Coach, you know how sometimes a lot of times we judge careers on who you beat, but you know how you sometimes judge careers that are in progress long before they retire? Judge them on who doesn't want to fight them. That's the real key. Because there's fighters that I'm just telling you, I've had discussions with managers who have had multiple world champions. The ultimate compliment they give me is like, "Oh, that guy? Oh yeah, we're never fighting him." It's like, no, you got to get the money right. Or no, Steve, not now. Not now. And that to me is the ultimate compliment that, no, we're not going over there for now till the money's right. So I had this whole notion that Crawford had been avoided. I don't get it. I mean, this is how disrespectful the Crawford reputation was. I get it. There was no Costa Frankie Randall, and Aaron Pryor at 140. But you know what? He cleaned up the division. And nobody really wanted him, but he cleaned up the division. He was undisputed, and people rip him for being undisputed at 140. I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. You people are the ones that always say we need one champion in each division, and that other guys need to fight the best. I get it. It was not the strongest division, but you discredit him for doing it. Right. There was such a prejudice and bias against that that it really did reek of an agenda.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was a hit piece, the smurchification campaign, and you know that the powers that be, and they control quite a few of these YouTube channels who do it right now to this day, you know, against the guy. You know, but at the end of the day, he got the last laugh. Spence fans seem to be traumatized by Errol Spence's loss this past Saturday night. And now I'm hearing conspiracy theories, Steve, very similar to when Wilder got knocked out by Fury. My question for you is this: why is that?
Because, you know, when you live in a dream world and you're forced to wake up at 5:30 in the morning in a cold sweat, this is what happens. And this is what happens when you take boxing too seriously, in the sense that you live vicariously through fighters and you get overly attached from an emotional standpoint. You lose your rationale. Right. And some of the things that I'm seeing on Twitter and some of the other things that I'm seeing online, I think are very, like, I don't want to say sad or pathetic, but geez, it is sad and pathetic. It truly is. And that's why I don't get really emotionally attached to boxing anymore as much as I cover it. I just look at this as content. Whatever happens, I write about it. Yeah. And whatever takes place, I will learn how to tell a story, tell the truth, and do my job. But these fans became so attached, it almost was not like being a fan. It was like being part of a cult.
Part of a cult, yeah. It was definitely the cult-like mentality. I know, because I used to be a part of a cult myself. Shout out to Swift718. He said after Saturday night's show, Showtime PBC, heavily promoting Bud like he's their fighter on YouTube. Imagine the business they would have done had they put that level of promotion in the lead up into the fight. We have another one right here, Steve. He said, shout out to Nathaniel Johnson. He said, I am a fan of Spence, but we have to be real. We have to be real. You are not 100%. You shouldn't get in the ring. He said, with that being said, shout out to Spence. Have a speedy recovery. Don't fight until the end of next year. Okay, that's a fan of Errol Spence's. Shout out to
Coach, can I tell you something? Go ahead. Keep going, Coach. Keep going, Coach.
This is the last one. Shout out to Bless 365. Yeah. She said, it seems to me that Errol Spence was the one too light in the ass. Remember, he said Crawford was too, man, you too light in the ass, you too small.
Coach, go ahead, I spoke to two well-known trainers, and I wanted to get their blunt, honest thoughts. So I said, your names will not be revealed, but I'm going to put this in my article. Okay. So two well-known trainers, I asked them, if you were handling Errol Spence based on what he's been through and the fight, the way it played out, would you allow him to do the immediate rematch next? And they both said, hell no. This kid needs a long rest. He says, if you give a damn about him, you say, look, we're going to probably take a year off. Let's do other things. You don't need that fight next. And I've seen interviews with Marcus Villegas, did a very good job with Virgil Hunter. Yeah, that was a good interview. That was a very good one. Virgil was dropping some knowledge. There's some wisdom there. I like and he also did an interview with, I believe, Sean Porter's father, Kenny, good friend of mine. He's always very honest. And then there was another interview with Robert Garcia with Little Giant, my guy Tito. Yeah. And every trainer is saying, no, hold on. He may not have to retire, but let's not do this again immediately. So I don't get these fans who are demanding that the rematch has to happen next. And if you bring it up or tweet it out, you're anti-Errol. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, it's the irony of ironies. I care more about Errol than you guys.
Yeah, you know what it is? They're not in the ring taking those punches. Again, these guys that are online, these YouTube channels, these pro PBC YouTube channels, you know, these guys who I desecrate every day, these guys are not boxing fans. They care nothing about the boxers or the sport of boxing. The guys have a racial agenda. And if you're not talking or speaking the way they want you to speak according to what they believe, then their job, what they want to do is to try to attack everybody digitally online. That's what this is.
Right.
So that's all. But don't. I will handle them. I am Neo of the Matrix. I got these guys.
just every day, Coach.
Hey, Steve. Now check this out. Tank Davis. I heard an interview. I guess he was on Chitlin Talk or Hog Mog Talk or one of these podcasts. Tank Davis doesn't like Crawford at all. He doesn't make no bones about that. And he said that he will, if he touched Terence Crawford's chin, he'll knock him out at 147. So the question I have for you is this. We hear all of these things that a new way the monster should dare to be great and move up to 135 and fight Tank Davis. We're hearing stuff that, hey, man, Jermell Charlo is daring to be great to go fight Canelo at 168. Canelo dared to be great to go fight Kovalev at light heavyweight. My question to you is this. Do you think Tank Davis should take that same advice that a lot of these fans say and dare to be great to move up to 147 and prove that he can knock Terence Crawford out?
Wow, now that's funny how certain guys have an expectation and standard to live up to, but others don't. Wow. By the way, I think that comment was from a while back. I think that particular space has been rendered null and void for now. That guy had a meltdown. That was hilarious. But anyway, it is funny, though, how certain fighters who would just go to a weight class are expected to move up 2-3 weight classes. Other ones can just say that I'm going to knock a guy out and they get credit for the win. Hey guys, hypothetical victories do not exist. And here's the thing that got me. I don't even want Tank to fight Terence Crawford. I'd like him just to fight Shakur Stevenson or guys like Devin Haney.
Yeah.
Just fight guys in your own damn weight class, and we're good with that. Yeah. But Terence Crawford, look, the only way Tank could hit Terence Crawford is if he had a step ladder. You want to talk about being a size bully?
Yeah.
Terence could literally just jab him with one hand and keep him at bay. And I really like Tank. Tank might be the best 35 in the world, whether you like it or not, because of that power.
Yeah.
But once again, like you say, from the book of Coach Malachi, if you didn't have double standards, you'd have none at all.
Yeah, these guys have double standards, triple standards, quadruple standards. They want certain fighters to do astronomical things, while they fighter that they love just sit on the shelf. They'll use double talk like, this dude ain't fought nobody. He got to prove himself, this and that. But then when it come time to a fighter who they want to see get a shot, they'll say, give him a shot, while ignoring the fact that this guy hasn't fought anybody yet. You get what I'm saying? So I like to take their words and throw it right back at them. They don't like when you do that. When you do that, they hate that. Spence says that he wants an immediate rematch. You already told me that you don't care nothing about a lot of people saying that they don't want to see him have a rematch. So I'm going to dismiss that one. Where do you rate Terence Crawford amongst the all-time greats? From the people who you've spoken to thus far after Saturday's destruction of Errol the True Spence, where did you rank Terence Crawford now? I'm saying over his body of work.
Yeah.
His overall body of work as a pro.
Coach, I think he's in the top 25 now.
Yeah.
I really do. And that's like rare air.
Yeah,
and he's not done yet, so keep that in mind. He's not done yet. He's still got a few more chapters to write. Yeah. And if he can go up to 54 and unify or become undisputed, now think about this, 54, 47, 40. You got more belts than Birkenstock or Gap. You do that, you're in my top 10.
No, matter of fact, he started at 135.
So 135, he was a WBO belt holder, right?
Yep.
But then at 140, undisputed. At 40, 47, undisputed. If he can do some sort of let's say he wins 2 or 3 belts at 40, at 54, and beats guys like Tim Tszyu and Charlo or whoever's out there, to me, it would be hard to keep him out of the top 10 to 15.
Damn. I got to think about that one, man, because it's some bad boys, man. I'm thinking Ezra Charles. I'm thinking Archie Moore.
Yeah, Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali, Ray Robinson, Roberto Duran. Yeah.
Hagler.
But,
damn.
But you know what, though?
Sanchez.
It's a little bit right. And, Coach, keep this in mind. It's difficult because those guys fought a lot more.
Yeah.
And, but look, if Floyd Mayweather at 50 fights basically is considered one of the all-time greats, and I certainly have him in that rare air.
Yeah.
Well, why can't Crawford?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why can't, if you're going to say, well, Crawford hasn't fought enough. Okay. Well, what if Terence and Floyd end up with approximately the same amount of fights? You're going to disqualify one and not the other? Again, are we doing double standards, no standards? What are we doing here?
These guys are doing double standards. Shout out to K. Vaughn. He said, go nose. He said, hey, guys, Tank said he'll
Boo!
Tank said he'll drop Crawford in the glass shield remark. Tank versus Crawford at 147, a pipe dream. Yeah, that's a pipe dream. We already addressed that one, K-Von. That ain't gonna happen. Tank ain't. I don't care what Tank say out of his mouth. I can damn near guarantee you he ain't moving up to no goddamn 147 to fight no Crawford. I can promise you that. That ain't
Oh
happening.
my! I mean, look. Well, do you think Tank will even fight a Teofimo Lopez at 40?
Yeah, we trying to get
Like,
Tank.
come on.
We trying to get Tank to fight Shakur Stevenson. So I know
Yeah.
he ain't going up to fight no Terence Crawford. I just wanted to fight Shakur or something, you know. Shout out to Michael Giles for dropping that $7 super chat. He said when the other opponent is not from the PBC, can a PBC fighter win big fights? As Bud fans, it's been 5 years. It's been a 5-year struggle, and we tried to tell them fried fish. I think he's talking about the actual record of when a PBC fighter fights a top ranked fighter. You know.
Yeah. Well, Tank Davis fought. Look, Coach, Tank Davis fought Ryan Garcia, but I thought Ryan Garcia was much more sizzle than steak.
Yeah.
You know, but there's I'm just going to say this again, and we've talked about this for about 2 years. There's a reason why Terence Crawford was always the last guy that Errol Spence would fight. Remember when they had that face-off in Oklahoma back in 2018? And first time they came face-to-face, and Errol flat out told Terence, oh, no, I got a plan. I got this guy, and then maybe you.
Maybe you, yeah.
And I'm like, good grief.
No, as a matter of fact, he said, I ain't never mentioned your name. He said, I'm going to fight Mikey, then Danny, then maybe Keith,
then Sean.
then maybe Sean. He say, so he didn't mention Terrence, huh? He say, nah, Al ain't never mentioned you. He ain't mentioned you.
Hey, Coach, what? So, Coach, let's go through this scenario. Let's say Terrence is going to stay at 47 because someone tells Errol, right now, let's lay back. Take a little rest. We don't need to do the immediate rematch. Maybe we can do it later. So let's say Terrence needs a fight, whenever that is at 47. Am I nuts for thinking I want to see him against Jerron Boots Ennis then? Isn't that the next best fight?
No. I mean, you know, you either put him in there with Boots. You put him in there with who the other guy? I think because I think he has.
There's a Montes Stanionis. Stanionis is a tough guy.
Yeah, Stanionis. He has a couple of mandatories he would have to defend. If he stay at 147 and don't get Spence, then yeah, you have Boots out there. You have Stanionis. I don't know who his WBO mandatory would be. Maybe it's that guy from Golden Boy. I forgot his name.
But, Coach, if he goes up to 54, see, we have to see what happens now on September 30th.
Yeah.
If Jermell Charlo loses to Canelo, most likely he's going to come back down to where he has all the belts. And, Coach, I will make a prediction right now. I don't like it when fighters go all the way up 2 weight classes and try to come back down. If that is the scenario, and now Terence Crawford can just move up to 54 and get an immediate title shot, I think that's an ideal situation for Bud, even if he's a naturally smaller guy than Jermell.
He will. Because that Jermell Charlo fight is there for him. And I think that's a bigger fight than anything he can fight at 147. The biggest fight that he fought at 147 is Errol Spence. So he wants Jermell Charlo bad. I spoke to him personally. When I was in Omaha, listen, Bo Mac, they want him. They say, you know how Bo Mac, man, he ain't shit. He ain't shit. You know, he ain't shit. He said, Bud gonna beat him. Bud gonna beat him. He gonna beat him. You want to know why he gonna beat him? Because Bud is gonna outsmart him. He's smarter than Jermell Charlo. I like Jermell Charlo. I probably never hang out with him on the street, but I do like him. But you know, from a fighter standpoint, he just seemed very emotionally unstable and shit to me.
Yeah, I mean, boy, there's always something going on with the Charlos. I feel like at a certain point, maybe you're the common denominator. Maybe it's you guys and not everybody else. But I'm just telling you, Jermell Charlo, Terence Crawford.
That's a mega fight. That's a mega fight.
That's a hell of a fight. Oh my God, you'd better keep security away from everybody. You may have to have separate press conferences, separate weigh-ins, separate everything.
Hey, that's a mega fight. Because I was first saying that, I was like, man, I don't know, man. Jermell Charlo, man, might be a little bit too much for Bud, man. Like, I'm thinking he's a little bit too much for Bud and stuff like that, man. That's Jermell Charlo. He a knockout artist. Jermell Charlo be popping his neck when he get mad and spazzing out and stuff. But now that I think about it, It's something Bomac told me. He said, what you notice about Jermell Charlo? I say the only thing I noticed that I really don't like when Jermell Charlo fights sometimes, he fights angry. And he fights, when he gets angry, he fights tight. So you can literally see when he's getting ready to throw his punches. He fights tight. He doesn't throw his punches with any fluidity. Like if you can get him to the point where he's mad, has an attitude, which more than likely he's going to be mad and have an attitude. You know, this motherfucker Terence Crawford, he beat Errol Spence. And Errol Spence, I heard that Errol Spence used to beat Jermell Charlo up in sparring. So the guy who used to beat Jermell Charlo up in sparring got flatlined by Terence Crawford, the guy who you hate. Jermell Charlo hates Terence Crawford. So now you got to fight. Now you got to fight this guy. You know what I mean? First you told him, tell Terence Crawford, I'm busy. I have other things to do. After Canelo, more than likely going, and I like Jermell, trust, I do. I want to see him win, but Canelo probably going to flatline him. After Canelo finishes with him, if he come back down to 54 with those belts, that fight has to be next. Because you got a small guy in Crawford versus Jermell Charlo.
Think about this. If Crawford fought Castano, I would make Bud a pretty significant favorite. I think he'd end up stopping him, right? Look, Castano, he may have won that first fight with Charlo. It took Jermell Charlo 2 fights to really stamp home a definitive victory against Castano. Let's not make it sound like Jermell has been dominant here. In that rematch against Tony Harrison, he was getting pieced up on the inside. I was at that fight in Ontario. That was on Fox. Winner of 2019, I believe.
Right.
So Jermell, for as good as he's been, and he must give him credit for being undisputed at 54, he's also had vulnerable.
That was a weak division. 154 is a weak division, though. It's not really no.
Right. He's had vulnerable moments.
Yeah. And my thing is, it's just he fights tight, man. So, Steve, the telltale sign for me for this fight was how calm Terence Crawford was during the press conference and during the fight. I have never seen a fighter, like I've seen a lot of Floyd Mayweather fights, and Floyd Mayweather is always very calm and relaxed, but this was different. This is different. Terence Crawford was in like a zone, like it reminded me like mentally, we do know that he beat Errol Spence physically, but to me it seemed like he beat him mentally before they even stepped in the ring. It was as though I thought I was watching Super Saiyan Goku or Ultra Instinct Goku, to where no matter how fast you throw your punches, I see everything before it unfolds. And that's what we saw Saturday. Like Neo in the Matrix, when Agent Smith rushed Neo, when he realized he was the one, he stopped the bullets in the air, and then he turned his head to the side, and then he was, blocking all of Agent Smith's attacks with one arm. It seemed like to me mentally, he was in a zone that you very seldom see fighters in mentally. What say you about that?
Coach, it reminded me a lot of Bernard Hopkins going in front of 20,000 Puerto Ricans 3 weeks after 9/11. And everyone thought Trinidad was unbeatable. He nearly knocked William Joffe's head off. Me and Doug Fisher went to all 3 rounds of the middleweight tournament that year. And I remember Hopkins had a 12-round fight. He blanked Keith Holmes. Wasn't that exciting, but he won. Meanwhile, Trinidad 2-3 weeks later just absolutely eviscerates Joffe. One of the most devastating exhibitions of punching I've ever seen. And people forget, Trinidad was a 3.5-1 favorite over the Executioner coming into that night.
I remember that.
And Bernard did a lot of stuff like throwing the Puerto Rican flag down in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and he had to run for his life at Roberto Clemente Stadium. I mean, he was a marked man. And then he came into that fight with Ray Charles, America the Beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the most emotional things I've ever seen. I mean, because of everything that has gone on. And then here comes Trinidad, and everyone's like thinking this is going to be a coronation, and then Trinidad's going to fight Roy Jones at 68. And that was one of the most masterful performances. I watch that fight once a year just to enjoy what he did. And literally by the 6th round, everyone's just in shock. in shock. Like, oh my God, like we're watching a virtuoso masterclass performance. And then when he stopped them in the 11th,
I remember.
I mean, I've
I
never seen
remember.
so many sad Puerto Ricans. I mean, I love them, but there's not Wepa on this night, but that's what it reminded me of.
Hey, hey, Steve, do you know the balls you gotta have to go in the heart of Puerto Rico, snatch the Puerto Rican flag out of Don King's hand, no, out of Trinidad's hand. I think it's
Trinidad,
out of Trinidad's hand, and throw it down on the ground and step on it in front of all of them
coach,
Puerto Ricans.
coach, you know what happened was look, I'm still very friendly with Bernard, but I was one of his favorite writers. We had a great relationship. And he had been taunted after the Joppy fight. He had been there. A lot of Puerto Ricans were coming up. A lot of it was good nature, but a couple Puerto Ricans got a little bit out of hand getting in his face. And Bernard told me, he said, Steve, I'm going to tell you this. He always used to call me Kim. Kim, I'm going to tell you right now. If they start waving that flag in my face, they're not going to like what I do. And I go, what do you mean? They better not be waving that stuff in my face, Kim. I'm not playing that. So they go to Miami. They were taunting him, flags in his face. New York, flags in his face. They went to Philadelphia. So all the New York Ricans were in his face. Philly Ricans in his face. So by the time they got to San Juan, he had it. Now, that was like 5,000-6,000 people there. And so he snatches it, and they literally had to get an escort, and they had to run for his life. There's footage of it. And they had to get inside of one of the offices near the dugout, and armed guards and policemen had their guns drawn, thinking, if anyone comes through, we're shooting somebody. Because I know people that were there. A couple of my friends were with Bernard, and they said for like an hour, we thought we were dead. So they had to get an escort to the airport. Like it was like the president. He had the Secret Service, but Bernard really set the tone.
Bro, I was like, I know this motherfucker crazy. Did he do what I think he just did? Bro, I ain't never seen that like that.
Yeah, and Bernard just goes, Kim, I finally talked to Bernard, he goes, Kim, I told you. And I'm kind of in awe, and I wrote a story about it. And I have to give Bernard Hopkins credit. Unlike Oscar De La Hoya, it took 5,000 Puerto Ricans to make him run instead of just one. And so then all the De La Hoya fans got pissed off at me for that. But I thought it was a funny line. But Bernard had the guts of a burglar.
Yeah, man, just how calm Crawford was. I remember in the lead up to the fight, and this is my last part here. In the lead up to the fight, when he gave, this is before they was, they had to weigh in and stuff. He said, "I promise you," Bomac said, "I promise you," and I want you guys to hear me good. When this is over with, Terence Crawford's hand will be raised. And then, Bud say, I've been waiting for this all my life. And, when I become undisputed, Saturday, you guys are going to say that I'm one of the greatest fighters of such and such of all time or whatever. You guys are going to say, you're going to finally give me my props. And he was fighting for respect. And, of course, he got paid a lot of money. I'm hearing they got paid anywhere from $20 to $25 million. I don't know. I don't know what the pay-per-view numbers are. I heard they did like $20 million, almost $22 million at the gate, which is good. I think $1 million behind Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia. But to me, just me talking to his family, everybody in his family, his team, I can tell you this shit was personal.
It was.
It was personal.
Coach, didn't it seem like he took out 5 years of frustration in that night?
Yeah.
That's what it looked like.
This shit was personal. Like, I'm like, this dude is fucking deadly calm. Like, he walked to the ring. It was like the moment wasn't too big for him. As a matter of fact, Terence Crawford ring entrance, walking with Eminem, playing the song Lose Yourself.
With the fishnet?
With the fishnet. Shout out to So Cold. Shout out to So Cold. Shout out to So Cold. Steve Nelson. But it was though he became the embodiment of that song. If you listen to the lyrics of that song, if you only get one shot, you only get one shot. Don't miss your chance to blow. This opportunity comes once in a lifetime. And and in the verses, Eminem talks about the struggles that he had to go through in the lead up to every time he say the verse. It's like Terence Crawford, he was the physical embodiment of every word lyric in that song that night. What say you about that?
No, he was. And he just had this aura about him the whole week. I'm just telling you, I mean, when they faced off at the final press conference, there's this great picture that people have kind of made into a meme or Errol's just kind of looking ahead, staring into the crowd, and Bud is like right there on him, staring at him from the side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. Oh boy. The body language is so clear. And, you know, when Errol went into the ring, he had this glassy, glazed look upon him, like a guy almost going to the electric chair.
Dude, you know, it reminded me you know what that reminded me of? When Wilder fought Fury in that second fight. He had that same look. Go back and look at when Wilder fought Fury the second fight, when he took the mask off and the costume off, and then when him and Fury was face to face in the middle of the ring, Fury had a dead man walking look on his face like Clubber Lang, and Wilder had this glossy look in his eyes. It was as though the moment was here. All that shit you talk, you got to back that shit up now. You get what I'm saying? And I think the moment got too big for him.
Coach, there's no doubt about it. I believe that Terence was thinking all those Twitter followers, all your minions, all your groupies, all your YouTube channels that pander to you, they can't help you.
They can't help you now.
Look at me. I'm in charge now.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like, that Somali pirate in that movie. Look at me. I'm in charge now. And he didn't really want to look at him. I mean, I'm just telling you, Crawford is the coldest, DA coldest in the game. He really is.
Bruh, hey, Steve, hold on, I have one more for you. Shout out to Swift 718 for dropping that quarter for Doug. He said the WBO allows for reigning champs
they do.
to challenge the next weight class WBO champ. Okay.
Absolutely. That's how Usyk got his title shot against Anthony Joshua, and that is a rule they've had for at least 15, 20 years. Absolutely correct.
And also, that's how Crawford got his shot at Jeff Horn.
Yes, right off the bat. You're absolutely correct.
I have one more for you. If as it relates to Crawford, when he was with Top Rank, explain to me why he wasn't able to land the Manny Pacquiao fight when both of them were with the same company.
My view is this. I think maybe Bob had some sympathy for Manny, but here's another thing. I was told by people in Pacquiao's camp, you can guess who? They never wanted Crawford.
Well, Freddie Roach.
Freddie
Roach said that. I heard Freddie Roach say that.
Okay, well, Freddie's admitted it. He told me that 5 years ago. So, yeah, it was Freddie, by the way.
Freddie was like,
sources say. Hey, Coach, sources say. Freddie.
Sources say. Sources say. Freddie like, hey, look, man, we ain't fighting that.
Look, Freddie has a great eye.
Yeah.
And he told me one day, he goes, Steve, that Crawford, he goes, man, that's tough. He's told me this, like, about other guys. Like, yeah, it's kind of tough, Steve. So, like, when a trainer tells you off the record, oh, that's kind of tough, that means that, yeah, we don't want it. That's kind of what it means. It's a code phrase.
Hey, Steve, man, hey, thank you so much for calling the show, man. I really appreciate you. Is there anything you want to leave any parting words to the audience? We have 1,700 people here.
First of all, look, I love listening to you at least 60 to 90 minutes a day on my drive to the office here in Montebello, and you do a great job of keeping everyone entertained and informed. Just keep listening, and also my little program with Mario Lopez, the 3 Knockdown Rule, is out on YouTube.
Yep.
And we'll continue to do what you do, Coach. Keep preaching the message. Keep grinding away. We need independent, bright voices like yours, and I will continue to watch and listen, brother.
All right, thank you, man. Steve Kim, shout out. Don't forget, guys, to subscribe to the 3 Knockdown Room podcast. Is on YouTube. I watch all of the episodes myself. Please, you guys, go subscribe. Shout out to Steve Kim.
Man, I'm out of here, bro. Let's go.